What is good? What is going on? And what is cracking? I am Philly Foothills, and I am back in the nest out west, where I'm trying to bring you the best when it comes to Philadelphia Eagles content on YouTube. Thank you for joining me. We are live at 5 o'clock out here on the West Coast. Appreciate you guys. And today I am humbly joined by my guest, Mr. Lindy Endzone. He is another Eagles content creator like myself, up-and-coming kid, and he's putting out good content. Guys, if you guys haven't checked him out, please go over to Lindy Endzone on YouTube and check him out. You guys sub him up, watch his content, give him some thumbs up because he puts out good stuff. So without further ado, Mr. Endzone, how are we feeling today? How you doing, sir?
I'm all right, man. It's just cool. We got this opportunity to get the collab going, and we got quite a bit. To share with the people here. The Eagles schedule just dropping now, about 3 minutes ago, and but they had it early on Twitter. So we got a lot of stuff to get into.
Yes, we do. But before we do that, for maybe some of my fans who have already subscribed to my channel and hopefully they're watching, hopefully they'll join us tonight or they'll watch this later. I'm going to ask you a few questions first before we jump into some of the hot topics of the day and some of them, major more Eagle content. But so Lindy, where are you from and how long have you had your channel?
Well, I kind of bounced around the U.S. a little bit in my lifetime. I'm native to Pennsylvania, the northeast side of PA. I was about 2 hours north of Philly in what was the Luzerne and Carbon County. For those that are somewhat familiar with PA, I'm not too much of the Philly people, I wouldn't think, but not too many cities that I can really mention out that people may be familiar with other than Wilkes-Barre and Scranton. I know Jason Avant is, but other than that, yeah. So I was born and raised there. Like I said, 2 hours north of Philly. Then I went on a journey moving to Maryland to get to know my now current wife, and from Maryland we moved down here to Tennessee for her education, and just going where the opportunity takes us. So Eagles fan living in the heart of Titans country.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. How long have you had the Lindy Endzone channel? How long have you been doing content on YouTube?
Lindy Endzone was a kind of a I guess a continued development of an idea that I had, outside of just talking to family and friends about sports or football or whatever it may be, primarily football and basketball, but it just came to mind that I wanted to get my viewpoints out there, and 6 months later, here we are.
All right, well, that's cool, man. So being from PA, have you been pretty much an Eagles fan all your life then?
Yeah, I definitely have. My father grew me into it, so I've bled green ever since. Growing up as a toddler, they had my mom and dad had me dressing up in full Eagles attire with the uniform and helmet and everything, and it just and my fandom just carried from there. So
beautiful. That's awesome. Yes. That's what I like to hear. Definitely. So was there certain people or current YouTube creators out there that inspired you to do this thing on your own?
Geez. Now, being that
I know there's a lot of names.
Yeah, that's the crazy part. But being that I'm actually a content creator now, the list kind of grew. But in the beginning, even before my channel became a thing, I was I was big into watching guys like Lord Brunson and Philly 500, because not only do they bring good content, but there's an entertainment value to them that it's unique, it's humorous, but it's knowledgeable at the same time when it comes to Eagles football. Outside of statistics that they go over, with the football team, and outside of that, them two were, they were pretty big as far as content for the Eagles that I watched. Outside of the official YouTube for the Eagles, dropping stuff that I would watch every now and then. But branching off of them, and then the more I kind of grew into the idea of making my own channel, and that's where guys like Philly Take with RB came in, and Gate City Sports and Philly Fresh and Philly Talk Podcast, and I could keep going. It's almost an hour's worth of a list, and
I do. I do. And the main two that you mentioned, LB and 500, those two are definitely two of the ones that I definitely started following when I started getting more into YouTube and the content creators and things like that. So yeah, I'm with you on that. Definitely. I know if some of the viewers go over to your channel, they're gonna wonder this question. So what made you pick the Mavericks as your NBA team? I can't say the D word. I hate saying the D word. So even when we're talking hoops, I don't like saying it. What made you pick the Mavericks as your NBA squad to cover?
Oh, geez. Here we go. Well,
not to put you on the spot a little bit at all, but
no. So for me to start, my fandom for the NBA actually started with the 76ers. So being a PA native, that's kind of the way to go. Especially if you have parents that are devoted to sports teams, they want you to grow in the same franchises of watching their respected teams, and that fandom and that sort of thing. So growing up, I was big with the Sixers. Allen Iverson was he was like my biggest idol. Outside of Michael Jordan, obviously, and some other guys came into the picture the older I got, with the more I understood the game of basketball, and then starting to play it at the age of 6. I was like I said, I was big with the Sixers. Once Iverson retired, that's when my love kind of that's when my love for the Sixers kind of, I wouldn't say died out, but my fandom kind of branched to more of my favorite players, Dirk Nowitzki being one of them. For the Mavericks, I won't say the D word just to keep it off of your channel, but So
please don't. Yes, please. There's children watching. I mean, come on. Let's be good.
I got you. But yeah, as far as the Mavericks go, I was big with Dirk Nowitzki. How unique he was as a player, and one of the most impossible shots to block, and how his fadeaway was. And it's funny because of his story. Coming into the NBA, a European player, and the scrutiny that he kind of went through, with the fans and the organization, that at one point he was known as a choker, and like he couldn't deliver in the playoffs until 2011 came around, and they took out a juggernaut, with the Miami Heat, and that was a pretty massive upset, and then all that kind of banter from the past was kind of wiped away, because he delivered on a promise that on a promise to bring a championship to the Mavericks organization, and almost 2 decades later after that, he unfortunately retires, because I would have loved to see him a little bit younger, along with Luka together.
That would have been a scary combination if Luka would have came in the league. a little earlier, that would have been a very scary combination. I agree with you.
Yeah,
Definitely.
when you talk about duos in basketball, and
Yeah.
it's a shame. It's a shame because the Mavericks could have had that if Steve Nash stayed and Dirk had Steve Nash, but that wasn't the case. So unfortunately, being that Luka was too late coming into the league when Dirk retired,
Yeah.
it is what it is. But just that's just where my fandom stemmed off from, and then especially especially the kinds of players that the Mavericks have brought in. I'm a big fan of Vince Carter. I cried when he retired. I didn't want him to go either.
Insanity.
Uh,
Yep.
he came through Dallas. He was a fantastic sixth man in like 2012 and 2013. And, so
He played. Vince Carter played for quite a few teams in his career. He was a journeyman at the end, and he was an amazing athlete, especially towards the beginning of his career. And yeah, I definitely have a lot of respect for Vince Carter.
Yeah,
But
it didn't bother him though either. I mean, he's the only player in NBA history to play in 4 different decades. He retired at 43 years old and he can still do a windmill. That's just it's beyond me, the talent and athleticism that Vince Carter has. So
right,
yeah,
that's a good point. He's definitely a generational talent for sure. But looks like we got 7 people in the live stream right now, so I want to shout out everyone. Thank you for joining us right now so far. We'll get to some of the comments maybe in a little bit, but I have one more fun question for you. And shout out to another Eagles content creator. Shout out to Birdman951. This one came from him. I can't take credit for this question, but this is a little fun one for you. So when it comes to pineapple on pizza, is it yes or no?
You really bringing them out. Yeah. No, I'm not a fan of pineapple on pizza. Unfortunately for some people, I know it's quite a favorite of theirs, but no, I can't do it.
Gotcha. All right, cool, man. I appreciate
Hawaiian's okay.
Yeah,
Hawaiian's okay.
Yeah, I
if you
get you.
throw ham on there, but
Right.
just pineapple itself, nah, I can't.
I gotcha. Yes, sir. So, I mean, the schedule came out today. Let's just jump right into let's address the elephant in the room right now. Let's jump right into the schedule. I mean, looking at it right now, Lindy, I am too. What are you thinking? What's your thought? What's your initial thoughts right now? So we obviously had leaked out early that we had Atlanta week 1. I don't know if you've seen my video, but I made a kind of a funny video about Dallas getting Tampa Bay because I think Dallas is going to have to go down to Tampa Bay, and that's going to be a very tough drawing the champs week 1. So I thought I'd poke a little fun at the Cowboy fans. But what are you thinking, Lindy?
Well, I think the way it's going right now is that the Eagles, based on strength of schedule, I think they're top 5, and I think as far as the strength of schedule goes, I think they're top 5. But that's something to me that you can't really put into context because a lot of these teams, going into this year are different from their from their teams respectively of last year. I mean. Last year we were 4-11-1, and as it's said, you're only as good as your record shows, and that's I don't think that's necessarily the case when we're going into 2021 here. We got a brand new coaching staff. We got new personnel in here. The draft class is looking better by the day. Based on need of depth and improving the skill positions. So I don't know, because I originally had the Eagles as only a 7-win team at the most, and that's not to kind of talk them down in a sense, because with the 17th game and saying that we can, in my opinion earlier, in going 7-10, that's not to that's not to say that we're going to be terrible. No, I mean, you can, as oxymoron as this sounds, you can have a record under 500, but if you take it into context, a team can still be competitive as long as you're competitive in these games. When you look at the record and say, well, they stunk, they were under 500. Well, that doesn't really matter unless you look at the result of the game. It's like, on the other side, you can very well say, well, the other team was just better equipped to win this football game. So at that point, it would be it is what it is scenario. But the more I look at the schedule here, it's like
it's outside of Dallas week 3 on Monday Night Football. So we have Atlanta week 1. We're home to San Francisco week 2, and then we go to Dallas Monday Night Football week 3. But then we don't have another division game until week 12. So this schedule is very division heavy towards the end. So that's going to be very interesting, especially with weather coming into account. We have to. That's always going to be in play, especially later in the year when the weather gets bad. So, this is very interesting. This is actually the first time, to be honest to God, this is like it just came out right before we got on here. So this is our initial reaction really to this, guys. I mean, how are you feeling week 1? I mean, obviously we got to go down to Atlanta. What's your prediction for that game?
Well, the score prediction obviously is going to fluctuate. The closer we get to the start of the regular season, including even preseason games. I mean, at this point, from what I'm hearing, it's to be determined that we may possibly have a third preseason game. But for the most part, I heard that we're only going to have 2. And I think those 2 preseason games include playing the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots. And the preseason games are important as well because we want to see some of these guys towards the bottom of the depth chart, including maybe some of the rookies. We want to see where they're at, outside of these training camps and practices, to where we're not going to be as limited this time anymore as 2020 was in the midst of more of the climax of the pandemic. This year it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm hoping that some of these new kids coming in and the year 2 players, they're going to be in a bit of a better establishment going into the season. So, I mean, the Falcons at this point control all they want, and they already posted it on Twitter talking about, oh, remember last time the Falcons faced the Eagles and this happened on a 4th and 3, where Matt Ryan hits Julio Jones and they get a go-ahead, game-winning touchdown. And it's like, well, guess what? We're not the same football team. That quarterback's not there anymore. The head coach is not there anymore. The defensive coordinator, and we can go on and on at this point. But it's like, I look at what the Falcons did in the draft, and I look what the Eagles did in the draft, and I'm at the point where I don't trust the Atlanta Falcons on both sides of the football. I mean, it seems to me that they went all offense and no defense. So you compare it to how the Falcons played last year as opposed to how they look this year. It seems to me that they're just continuing to strengthen the strength, and they're not addressing their problem areas. So we could very well see the same issues persist for the Falcons going into 2021, which therefore I think allows us to have our first win of the season.
That's a very good take on that first game. I would probably definitely tend to agree with you on that, because yes, I don't think Atlanta nearly addressed a lot of their needs. I mean, we definitely have some holes still as well, especially at corner. But that's obviously something we're going to have to address going forward. But I think we'll go down to Atlanta as well and get a win. So I think we'll be 1-0 going into week 2, and then that puts us that puts us at home versus the 49ers. So, and they more than likely they're going to be starting. I mean, it's going to be interesting. They still have Jimmy Garoppolo on the roster there, but they didn't draft Trey Lance for no reason. So, is Trey Lance going to be starting week 2? That's a definite huge variable in that game. What do you think, Lindy? What do you think about week 2?
Well, week 2 against San Fran. I mean, to me, as I go through the rest of the schedule, I think that's going to be included as one of my question marks as we dive further into the schedule for the season.
Right.
The 49ers are a question mark to me. The Carolina Panthers are a question mark. The Detroit Lions, the Denver Broncos, the New Orleans Saints. Those are and the New York Jets. Those are the teams to me that are question marks just due to who they acquired in the draft and how the team is going to look moving forward. Maybe the Raiders too. Maybe the Raiders too. There. The Raiders, I don't. The Raiders,
not so much.
I'm not exactly sure with the Raiders. I think they're going to maintain Derek Carr. I feel that he was good enough as the quarterback last year, and I think there was other issues more along the lines of inconsistency. But the Raiders don't strike me as a question mark to me. I think they just need to establish themselves with another year with John Gruden. But so I mean, other than that, I named off. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I named off 6 teams in our schedule that I feel that are question marks, and that's primarily. I would think that would primarily have to do with the quarterback position. So we just talked about the 49ers. Is it going to be Jimmy Garoppolo, who was recently in trade talks of maybe going back to the Patriots before they drafted Mac Jones, that he fell to them? Is it going to be Garoppolo? Is it going to be Trey Lance, who's still a project, even though he was selected as early as he was in the draft? Carolina could be the same case here. I mean, it's all going to depend on what they think of Sam Darnold. He's in a better situation now. He's got way better weapons. As far as the coordinator's perspective, I think Joe Brady can do a pretty good job with a quarterback like him, and kind of resurrect Sam Darnold's career a little bit. I mean, he's got guys like DJ Moore as a receiver. Robbie Anderson is still there. I think they acquired. They get J.C. Horn for the secondary. Great improvement there.
Right.
He's got Run CMC. Christian McCaffrey's his running back. I mean, it's looking very positive for Sam Darnold in Carolina, but it's just, how are they going to set up that football team with him as the quarterback? Detroit's another story. How is Jared Goff going to look? I don't know if the Lions did enough to necessarily support him. The Lions have been a disaster for the most part, and we can go about that as much as we want. Denver Broncos. The Broncos got a decision to make here. Do they want Drew Lock? Do they want Drew Lock? Do they want Teddy Bridgewater? I don't know. That's another one. And then you go to New Orleans Saints in Week 11. Is Taysom Hill the long-term answer? Are they going to go him? Are they going to go Jameis Winston? They still have their weapons and Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara. The defense is still pretty stout with guys like Cameron Jordan still there. But it's just the quarterback that's a question mark. And then how is Zach Wilson going to look for the New York Jets? There's a
lot of question marks. You're right. There's a lot of question marks. And to me, a couple of the tough games, obviously, that people were talking about on the outside looking in when the opponents were addressed was Kansas City and Tampa Bay. But it looks like we got Tampa Bay on a Thursday night. So that could possibly play into our favor with Tom Brady getting older. Father Time escapes no one. I mean, obviously, he's probably been the best I could ever think of to dodge Father said time, but he's when you plan a short week like that, you got to have, especially when you get older, you got to have that rest. So that could be an advantage for us, having the younger quarterback, having the younger team, I would say, for the most part. But, like I said, too, it's just if this division's close, looking down the stretch, like I said, week 12, we got the Giants. And then week 15, we have Washington. We're home to Washington. Then week 16, we're home to New York. Then week 17, we're at Washington. And then week 18, we're home to Dallas. So, if this division's close, it's gonna be a dogfight come down the stretch, and that's gonna make for one hell of an ending of a season. It's gonna be very exciting. So, I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Just, I mean, as far as, I don't ever remember seeing this many division games just stacked up like that at the end of the year.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a situation where we're definitely going to have to pretty much control our destiny here before we get an actual grasp on getting into competition with our own division rivals, back to back, or late in the season. I mean, we got some games early in the year that we really need to consider making top priority and taking them by the reins, and making sure that we get out of the link, and wherever we may go, and get out of there with a win. Because as we know, for you to make any noise in the playoffs, you got to go through your division as well. And we got to hope that when we're on the rise, that they're struggling. So there's really no other way to put it, unless we're at the point that we analyze our division rivals' schedules as well. So outside of that, we have to take care of our own business. And then when it comes time to face the division, we got to be top notch as much as possible, so we can control our placement in the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, can't argue with that answer at all, really. I mean, we have to, like you said, we can't be like New York Giants fans and worry about the other teams in our division. Worry about what they're doing and what games they're winning and losing and things like that. We have to just worry about our own, take care of our own business, stay in our own lane, and things will be all the better for us that way, because just less distractions. But I mean, do you want to? I mean, looking at, do you want to start? Do you want to even? Do you need to look at? Do you want to even talk about a season prediction right now, or do you want to think about it a little bit more, and we'll maybe we'll do that later on in the show.
Well, I mean, yeah, as we talked about a little bit earlier, it's still premature at this point, because it's just all going to depend on how every opponent, including us, how our rosters shape up and finish, and then until we see whatever the final number is, whether it's 54 or 55, or maybe even if it extends to 60. I think that's yet to be determined, and it just based off of that, I think that'll better help us understand the football team that we're fans of, that we're dealing with, as far as personnel goes, and seeing how well this newly acquired group of a coaching staff develops these guys, how they're implemented, and how they display their skill sets at practice, and then the upcoming preseason games. So there's a lot to consider at this point in time, but there's nothing wrong with giving an early season prediction. So Just based on having the official schedule now and going off of what I thought before, I think a safe over and under to me would be 8 games. And until I know more, just to play it safe, I'm not going to go with the over or under, but I'll just set that number to 8.
You know what? I like that number. I would be, if that's doubling our win total from last year. So that, to me, that's a vast improvement for it definitely into the right direction, especially. So, I'm right. I think 8, 9. I think probably our ceiling might be 9 games, but outside of us, really shocking the world. I think 9 games is probably our ceiling. But transitioning kind of like you were talking about some of the roster and things like that. So I got a question for you. So in your opinion, does Miles Sanders have to start stepping his game up with all this new incoming talent at running back? With Gainwell coming in, with Kerryon Johnson being brought over from the Lions. In your opinion, does Miles Sanders have to step his game up this year?
Oh, of course, and it's definitely not just from a competition standpoint. I mean, we have to look at the fact that this year when we're talking about stepping up, Dallas Goedert's rookie contract expires at the end of this season, and then Miles Sanders will be due next year. So not only are these guys playing for a roster spot, but obviously they're not, because they're they seem to be locked in at this point where Miles is the number one, and depending on what we do with Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert is the number one. But outside of that, not only are they preparing for the competition at their respective positions, they're playing for a contract. So they kind of have no choice at this point to give 100% or more. Not to say that their backs are against the wall, but they know their responsibilities, and they just have to do their due diligence and carry it out. So this is almost a make or break year for Miles Sanders, and the biggest thing is for him to keep himself on the field and to avoid injury.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably been his biggest downfalls from coming into the league is being able to keep his body healthy, being able to consistently stay out on that field. But a lot of his lack of production too is we have to kind of chalk that up to coaching as well, and the system that he was in with Peterson. But I mean, this running back room is crowded now. I'm pretty sure we have 8 running backs on the roster. With him, with Johnson, with Gainwell, and Howard, Scott, Huntley, Killings Jr., and I know your least favorite, Holyfield, but it's a very crowded room now. So, in your opinion, who makes this roster? How many? And obviously that's going to kind of depend on how many players they expand the roster to. So. We have to take that in mind too, whether it's upper 50s or they reach to 60. That's yet to be seen. Like you said, it's yet to be determined. But what do you think?
Well, for the majority of the players on this roster right now, besides with a few exceptions, obviously some acquisitions from teams of the Minnesota Vikings and the Indianapolis Colts. I believe we grabbed a corner from the Colts, and then obviously we have Eric Wilson and Anthony Harris from the Vikings, who are a little bit familiar with the defensive system under Jonathan Gannon. But when we talk about the running backs here, they're all, for the most part, they're all starting at square one, because they have to get used to different terminology and how the scheme is set up offensively. But at the same time, I already have selected my top 4 running backs going into 2021, which include Guys like obviously Miles Sanders, I would have it number one. Number two to me, it was a toss up. Now these guys, this isn't in any particular order, of course, but Miles was my number one. Kerryon Johnson would be number two. Um, Kenny Gainwell would be number three. And a bit of a surprise for some people, I have Adrian Killens at number four. And Adrian at number four would primarily be for the means of special teams. He has an explosiveness to him that I think we can utilize in the the punt or the kick returns. So we don't necessarily have to have the receivers out there, doing that kind of work. And so we don't have to hold our breath for the risk of injury as we've seen with Deshaun Jackson in one of the Giants games last year. But that's a different story because he's 33 going on 34 years old. So, but these guys have youth behind them. But at the same time, we have to consider the fact that Adrian Killens was just re-signed on a 2-year deal. So they have to see something in him that they like outside of the lack of opportunity that he was given, minus that negative 13-yard play against the 49ers last season where he got stuffed for a loss. And, you kind of have to look past that, to find the true potential of some of these players. And I feel that, a guy like AK-46 would be in a good position to kind of settle in that role. And, if somebody manages to go down in unfortunate circumstance, then, as far as the shiftiness that he has, that kind of lateral quickness, the speed that he possesses, I feel that he could replace a guy like Boston Scott. As we know, Boston only really showed up for 2 games a year for the most part, being that he's known as the giant killer. And outside of that, he wasn't the greatest on special teams. And I don't know. I look at a guy like him. I look at a guy like Jason Huntley. I don't know what they necessarily offer moving forward, especially when you bolster the running back room the way you do. And then, when we talk about Kerryon Johnson, the recent acquisition through waiver claims, Jordan Howard's in trouble. Whether we like it or not, Jordan Howard's in trouble because of Kerryon Johnson. Kerryon kind of, and this is the thing with the running back room, there's a lot of guys in here that, resemble each other's skill sets. So that makes competition even tougher for you to stand out to the coaching staff from an offensive perspective on, the type of role that you're going to receive on this football team. So like I said, a guy like Kerryon Johnson, he's Jordan Howard's biggest competition right now. He's younger. He's only going to be 24 years old going into the 2021 season. He's got he basically only has his rookie contract under his belt right now. Yeah, I mean, there's not much else I can really say there, but other than looking at the obvious. So and I'm with my four.
Right, and I'm with you for the most part. I think the advantage goes to Kerryon Johnson, like you said, because he's younger, and yes, he did have the I believe it was a knee issue, but
meniscus tear, yes.
They had a meniscus, yes, but Howard's got the shoulder. He's older, and I think Kerryon Johnson just does what he does a little bit better, and he's got youth on his side. So
yeah, it's not to say Jordan Howard is ancient by any means. I mean, no. He's 20. I think he's 26, going on 27. But the thing is that the running back position has such a short shelf life that you want to get the most out of these guys before it's too late. So that's one of the positions that you're always looking to get younger at.
Definitely, yes. So before we go any further, let me read some of these comments. Looks like we have. We had almost 10, I think, earlier, but we got a couple people in the live stream right now. But Let's see here. AK Eagles 88 says, "Yo, what up, guy? Yo, what up? Yo, what is good, my guys? What's going on, buddy? Thank you for joining the live stream. We appreciate it." Jason Morales 11, what's going on, buddy? He said, "Philly Foothills." I appreciate you guys checking in. Looks like Jay Fizzle C said, "Lindy."
Jay Fizz.
Jay Fizz was in the house. Hopefully he's still here. Maybe he can come back a little bit later. But yep, quite a few comments here. But, let's see here. I lost my place. But let me find my place real quick. I apologize. There we go. Midnight anthems. Got the bird wings out there. Absolutely. Jay Fizzle C said he's saying what's up to him. All right.
AK's a cool dude.
That's cool, man. Yeah, he sounds like he is. Nothing much, bro. Just supporting the homie and eating some good food. How you feeling, my guy? Yeah, you guys. Thank you guys for joining the live stream. We appreciate it. Looks like, looks like even Joey Shakes was in the house. He popped in earlier, gave us a nice what's up. So shout out to Joey. Shout out to Joey. Shout out to Big Play Slay. He was here in earlier as well. Yep. Thank you guys. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I talked to Joey a little bit ago, like a couple of days ago. It was funny. I sent him. I was talking to him on Twitter. He's got 72 in his channel name, and he was at the time he was my 72nd subscriber. So I had to let him know in that coincidence. It was pretty damn cool.
That is pretty. That's a sign. That's definitely a sign. That's pretty cool. That is. So, we got some, in my opinion, we got some pretty good undrafted free agents. Who do you think out of these guys has the best chance of making this team?
Ooh, that's a bit of a tough one at the moment, I guess. For what we can imagine as far as competition ramps up. I mean, we got a couple of receivers in there. One of the bigger favorites to a lot of the fan base right now is Trevon Grimes, the receiver out of Florida, who kind of fell under out of the spotlight, I guess, especially when you're playing along guys like Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney, who as a lot of people, Kyle Pitts could be a transcendent talent in the NFL, and then Kadarius Toney is kind of like that Swiss Army knife kind of receiver that he's very unique in his own right, and whether he was a reach by the New York Giants, that's not the here nor there. So, but it's crazy though, because we bring in a receiver like that who he stands at about 6'3", 6'4". With a good frame, I think around 220 or something like that. So it's funny because the way he's built, there's such a resemblance along those kinds of receivers. I mean, you look at a guy like Travis Fulgham, he comes in at 6'2", 225, and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside's built the same. The other undrafted free agent, Jamon Osborne, he's built the same way. So you got a crew of those X type of receivers, and as Sirianni has stated time and time again, one of the biggest things to him is competition, and he wasn't joking. So, but again, at the same time, this is how you get the best out of your players, and as far as talks of favorites, Trevon Grimes seems to be the favorite right now, but being that he has quite a lot to work on. It would seem at the moment that most of his contribution would be from special teams, I assume. unless he shows something in camp that really really lets him stick out amongst the rest of the receivers.
Right. So you mentioned Tony, that the receiver that obviously came from the same school as Grimes and was on the same offense, right? And so was Pitt. So I want to get your opinion on that a little bit, is because I know I've been hearing a lot of hype about Grimes. Is in your opinion, I don't know how closely you follow college football, but is he being overrated a little bit because he was on he had a pretty good supporting cast around him.
I don't know if it's a means of him being overrated. I think it's the fact that it's to some it comes off as a little bit of a disrespect to the fact that he ended up not being drafted in the first place, and he was still, and it's the fact that he was still able to eat in the kind of caliber of offense that was that he was surrounded with when you're talking about guys like Kyle Pitts and Kadarius Toney. But one of the bigger things to keep in mind here is the established connection that Trevon Grimes has with our quarterback coach and Brian Johnson. Obviously, so I mean, obviously, when you talk about that, that's probably part of the reason as to why we were able to acquire a guy like Grimes, is that Brian Johnson, being the offensive coordinator for the Florida Gators last year before taking this job, he obviously had to put in a good word for him. So we can't take that lightly. So with that said, that could very well bode to an advantage that Trevon may have as far as maybe climbing up the depth chart here and making the official roster. You just never know.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was a very big surprise to me that he went undrafted. I think a lot of it, had to do, it wasn't the fact that he went undrafted had to do with COVID, right? Did he opt out in 2020, if I'm not mistaken, or did Grimes play last year?
I believe he did. I believe he did play last year. I don't remember.
Okay. I think he did. I thought maybe he was a COVID slide, but I mean, that's really who stands out on that list to me too. I mean, I think he is a pretty talented receiver, and I think so. His skill set will transfer to the NFL, to the NFL level. But that just transitions me into what I was going to talk about next. Basically, is our crowded wide receiver room. What are we gonna do with these? Some of these, we have quite a bit of talent now at receiver. So, what do you think we're gonna do?
Well, since we're still on the topic of wide receiver, bringing Trevon Grimes back into the mix again, some of the things I heard that show up as an issue with Trevon in the first place is that one, he doesn't necessarily play. He doesn't necessarily play to his size. That was one issue that I have heard. Another one is that he posted a 40 time of around a high 4.4 to a 4.5, but there's problems where he doesn't necessarily play to that speed, and that's one thing that you have to consider. Another is that he has a release problem with getting off of the line where he can't seem to break away when there's a defender in his face. So those kinds of things can lead to a player, when you're talking a receiver. Those are the kinds of things that if it continues to be a constant struggle, that would lead them to being undrafted. But as far as the receiver room goes, we talk about finally having an alpha on this squad in Devontae Smith, who's going to make everyone around him better. If you go to some of the these early pressers that Devontae has had with the Philly media, and there were some good questions that were asked to Devontae, and one of them really sticks out to me the most is, they talked about that kind of leadership impact that a guy like Devontae Smith had along with Landon Dickerson at Alabama. And it was asked to Devontae that, when you talk about culture, what's one thing that you would bring from Alabama to the Eagles? And it's perfect. His answer is perfect to me, because that's kind of the motto or the mantra that we're wanting to, transition into with this new coaching staff. And the biggest thing is discipline. And as we have known the last couple of years, it didn't seem that there was a lot of discipline on this team. And and one thing that comes with discipline is accountability. So it seems that Devontae is pretty big on that, and just being hard on yourself to not commit mistakes, being hard on your teammates, and just to make it a huge collaborative effort, so everyone's on the same page, and they know what they're in the building for, to carry themselves on a better level than what they already are.
Well said. I mean, and like I said, it's a crowded room. We have 10, if I'm counting right, we got 10 receivers on this roster. We got Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Travis Fulgham, Quez Watkins, Greg Ward, Khalil Tate, John Hightower, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, and then the 2 undrafted free agents in Grimes and Osborne. So, how many? This is obviously going to depend too. Again, how many players total we're going to have on this roster. But do you think they're going to keep 6, 7 receivers? What do you think? And who do you think who do you think is going to make this team?
It seems to me that the max. I would think the max would be 6. I remember I did an episode on this, and it was a series that I started on my channel called the the early depth chart debate, and it was the first episode that I did, and was on wide receivers, and I can't remember the 4, or I think I selected 6. I can't remember what the number actually was, but if I can think off the top of my head, obviously you got guys like Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith. You're not gonna dump first round picks like that. Obviously, no way it's gonna happen, unless there's unless there's such a catastrophic circumstance that you got no choice. But obviously, in this case, you're not dropping them. So your top 2 obviously are going to be Jalen Reagor and Devontae Smith. Then if you go down the depth chart, I feel.
I think we can agree on the top 4. I bet. I mean, I think like you said, Devontae Smith, Jalen Reagor, Travis Fulgham. I think he should. I mean, if they would even think about cutting TF13, they're crazy in my opinion. So I think we could agree on Smith, Reagor, Fulgham, and Watkins as a solid 4. Would you say, or do you think Watkins is kind of on that borderline?
So Watkins sounds fair to me. I think I think it more comes down to the fact that everybody seemed to have suffered from a progression standpoint in 2020, where we just couldn't get on a page where we were able to advance from a skill standpoint, and from just from that point in general. Man, it's tough, because I had a battle between John Hightower and Quez Watkins. It's a tough one, because it seems that they both have similar it seems that they both have similar quirks to their game that they need to improve on, and they're pretty decent builds at the receiver position that we need at this point. But when it comes to a guy like Travis Fulgham, I know one of the bigger points of emphasis that people like to point out is that they felt that he had some sort of a maturity issue, and his route running kind of degraded a bit. Well, at the same time, we have to remember Travis went through a excuse me. Travis had a that was weird, but Fulgham had a ankle surgery last year that kind of limited him a little bit. Aside from the fact that, well, because we owed Alshon Jeffrey money and there was a justification of playing some of these veteran guys, there's you had that in the back, and you had that in the background, stunting some of their growth, and but we have to remember that Fulgham went through an ankle surgery, and I think that was another thing that kind of slowed him down a little bit. But when he had games like he did against the Baltimore Ravens and Pittsburgh Steelers, that just doesn't disappear. So if he was able to have that kind of camaraderie and that kind of timing and chemistry that he did when number 11 was still here, then he should be able to replicate the same thing with Jalen Hurts. It's just getting the timing down on the field, whether it's at practice or even during a game. So I mean, I'm okay. I would be okay either way, I think, with Hightower or Quez Watkins, but
I mean, obviously, I think Watkins has an advantage in the explosiveness department. To me, he definitely just has that. He has that kind of it factor where I haven't seen that yet as much from Hightower, and I'm hoping he can develop. But I mean between those, so that leaves us like basically, like you said, if they're going max 6 receivers, there's only a couple spots left. So I mean, obviously, a guy like Greg Ward Jr. has the NFL experience advantage over all these guys. JJ Arcega-Whiteside probably should file for unemployment now. I'm assuming at this point, because to me he's definitely on the outside looking in, and I mean I want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, but he's going to have to show me some very big things in camp and in preseason if he even gets that far. But
Greg Ward was actually one of the receivers that I did decide to keep. In my opinion, because it's like the thing working against him is that he is only 26 years old. Let's not think that he's an aging veteran, but outside of that, one thing that's working against Greg Ward is that he doesn't have. I don't think he has any kind of explosiveness to his game whatsoever. But the thing with Greg is that one, he's a dependable target, and two, he does offer a bit of a change of pace to where it's not all about quick cuts or getting up the field as fast as possible. Where if you need a guy to like sit in the zone and work underneath, and a player with actual quarterback experience where he knows where he needs to be as a pass catcher, then that kind of element is hard to replace so long as the player can utilize that. And I think that's where Greg Ward has an advantage.
Yeah, I mean when you have a thing like as much NFL experience as he has now, under his belt, I think that's definitely an advantage. Or it's just going to have to be one of those kind of wait and see things. Let's see here. AK Eagles 88 said, he said, "Hey, so I don't want to interrupt you guys, but I'm feeling really good about our O-line. How about you?" What do you? So, I mean, obviously that with the offensive line, AK, to answer your question really quick, give you the quick answer from me. When it comes to our offensive line, is health and age. So, if that's was a big issue last year, obviously with health, but with guys coming back like Brandon Brooks, Lane Johnson, those are big question marks that have to kind of prove that they can, they don't have to prove that they can produce out in the field, because we all know that they can do that. They have to be able to stabilize themselves, stabilize their bodies, be able to be available, be out in that field when we need them down the stretch run. So, what are you thinking about? What do you think about the O-line, Lindy?
Well, I think the I think the easiest thing to consider about it is the fact that we went into this draft thinking that we need to retool with youth. Whether it's to wean the veterans out. So long as these guys can stay on the field. We talk about guys like Lane Johnson and Brandon Brooks and Jason Kelsey. So long as they're healthy and staying on the field, they're an asset. But if they decide to get injured again, then they become a liability. So worst case scenario, because we were able to add to the trenches as far as a depth perspective, that kind of puts us in a better situation. And whether there was guys last year that we liked or not, we still have good depth pieces. I mean, there's people that I know there's people that don't like guys like I think what is it, Matt Pryor, and there's somebody else that people aren't necessarily a fan of, but guys like Nate Herbig, who it is said that he's actually dropped about 25 to 30 pounds, so he's in better shape than what he was last year. As far as an athletic standpoint, and not being that immobile boulder that he was, he actually dropped some weight, so that's very good for him. Guys like that. Luke Jurega, I know, is a favorite to Jeff Stoutland. Jordan Mailata being one of the biggest stories last year at left tackle. Isaac Sayamalu has maintained some. He's maintained some decent health. Jack Driscoll's got to stay away from concussions. It was pretty unfortunate for him. He was a bright spot coming from Auburn, and guys like that. So I like what they're doing right now, and they're looking towards the future, especially with a guy who seems to be like a cornerstone developer in Landon Dickerson, who can play at any spot on the offensive line. And those kind of players with that versatility are hard to find and hard to replace.
Very true. And speaking of Landon Dickerson, I was just about to ask you, so what are your feelings on him, as far as playing this year? Do you need to see him, being a second-round pick, do you need to see him out on the field this next year? Or would you like for him to kind of learn, maybe mostly from the side, and, try to make sure that his body is completely healthy and ready to go in 2022? What are your thoughts on that?
For Landon, I think it's just going to come down on how well he progresses in his rehabilitation program, and it's also going to come down to the fact on where Jeff Stoutland thinks that he's going to be. To Landon's perspective on reading his body language and how he answers questions and that sort of thing, I think he's ready to play this year. I think he wants to play this year. I think he wants to be on the field at the same time with his buddy Smitty and Devontae Smith, and be one of those impact players to not only work in the run game, but show the skill set that he possesses. When it comes to whether the run game or protecting Jalen Hurts. To me, just by reading him, I feel that he definitely wants to play this year, and knowing what Howie Roseman has said in the past, that they feel that they don't need to redshirt Landon. But again, it's just going to come down on how well he progresses in his rehabilitation, and as to whether or not Jeff Stoutland feels that Landon is ready to compete.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you follow or listen to Brian Baldinger at all, but I guess
here and there.
Yeah, I was hearing that he's got a pretty strong feeling that there's a chance that Dickerson could beat out Kelsey in camp, and I was kind of surprised to see that. I mean, I know Jason Kelsey is definitely on the back nine of his career, and this is probably his last year. But for him to come out, for him to really to make that statement, that was kind of very interesting to me, and I kind of wanted to hear what you thought about that.
Oh yeah, it's a pretty bold prediction, definitely.
Yeah.
But at the same time, whether this is, I don't even think this has anything to do with intimidation on Jason Kelsey's part either. Jason knows that he's pretty close to retirement, and he's already contemplated it at least 2 times before coming back to the Eagles. And as we know, he's one of those players that, the way last year finished, he doesn't want to end his career on that kind of note. So, he's going to, I feel he's going to want to go out with a bang, and as far as that goes, and, if worse comes to worse, we already know that Landon can, be inserted in there, and the offensive line doesn't miss a beat. And, that's one thing that Landon talked about in his presser today when the start of rookie training camp started. They asked him about his versatility and where his preference is on the offensive line, and I think it was real important to hear him say that he doesn't necessarily have a presence. He said as long as he's out there playing on the offensive line, that's all that matters to him. And him to be that kind of anchor to make sure that the top 5 guys are on the field protecting the quarterback at all times. The attitude that he carries, the leadership qualities that he possesses. This is, and it sucks to think about. It sucks to think about, where he is as far as his knee injuries are, but that's the gamble that Howie Roseman wanted to take. But at the same time, this has a high payoff if he, if his knees are in great shape, because the more I hear Landon speak, the more, the more I love the pick. And, these are the kind of players that the Eagles need when you're trying to not reset the culture in a sense, but revitalize what it means to be a winning football team.
Yeah, I mean, and AK Eagles 88 says Dickerson starts at left guard over Sayamalu, or however you spell it, and that's definitely a possibility. AK Eagles 88, we definitely appreciate you chiming in with the comments. Everybody who's in the live stream right now, we definitely appreciate you guys. System of the Knot, I wanted to address this one. He said, Lindy, is that a Selleck jersey? Hell yeah.
Yeah, it actually is a Brent Selleck jersey. I was able to find it online. It was a good deal. Somebody sold it to me for about $12, and I'm like, yeah, I have to have it to keep my collection going. So, System of a Knot, for coincidental purposes, the jersey I got on now is also Jeremy Macklin's. So that's something we share amongst each other. So we both got a Macklin jersey. Obviously, that's Jalen Hurts when he was number 2 last year. I have a salute to service Zach Ertz jersey as well. I have a salute to service for number 11 when he was still here. I have 2 Deshaun Jackson jerseys, and
oh wow. You got a big collection.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I have one more, but I don't think so. That may be all the Eagles jerseys I have. Yeah, I think so.
All right, so AK Eagle 88, he also said, I still really feel great about Herbig and Driscoll, so I'm going in hopeful. Yeah, I mean, those are 2 second-year guys who we drafted last year and who came in right away and showed that they can play at this level. So yes, Jack Driscoll and Nate Herbig are definitely going to be some good pieces for us going forward on the offensive line. I definitely agree. And looks like he also said Dicker. Oh no, I already read that one. And then he also said, yeah, I just got my Hurts salute to service jersey, just waiting for it in the mail. Sweet, man. Awesome. I hope it gets to you safely and quickly. I know you'll definitely get it and rock it. So good job on getting that, AK. But so, kind of transitioning a little bit to defense, I had a question about one of our draft picks, Jacoby Stevens. He's an interesting guy. I thought, he may have been drafted a little bit earlier in the draft, but your thoughts on the pick, and do you think he's that hybrid guy, right? He's that tweener between linebacker safety type. So what do you think, he plays more snaps this year at linebacker, down in the box, or more at safety?
Jacoby Stevens is interesting to me because he's built more along the lines of a undersized linebacker, but as we know, with how the league is changing to where the linebacker is more athletic than he is a brute. So with that said, it's also to be said, and this is one of the nuggets that I wanted to bring up, is that from what I'm hearing, and for some other fans that are hearing the same thing, it is said that Joe Osman is possibly moving to outside linebacker as well. So you're kind of crowding the room there. It's going to be pretty crazy because, we already seen Jannard Avery move back to linebacker from defensive end. So now Joe Osman could be moving over there as well. And then you got the versatile guy in Jacoby Stevens. So I don't know, but again, it's one thing to
like you said, it's another crowded room. Really, yeah. Especially with the two. It's I think if you account, like I said, we were talking about Jacoby Stevens and Patrick Johnson, who played more defensive end in college, but they're listing him as a linebacker. We have, from my count, is another 10 count of people on this roster. So the linebacker is another crowded room, and Jacoby Stevens, he's really, really going to be interesting to watch because I'm hearing, and from what I've been watching on the film, he's definitely better suited down in the box.
Yeah, and it's also important to mention that due to tradition at LSU, it's important to remind ourselves that this is a player that was given that highest regard number, that coveted number 7 for the Tigers. As we know, some big time players coming out of LSU have worn that already. I think guys like Patrick Peterson and Tyrann Mathieu, to name a couple, have worn the same number. So for a guy in Jacoby Stevens to fall as far as he did, but to still have that number being given to him, it definitely says something. But again, with him being a late round pick, he's another work in progress. Like guys like Teron Jackson and Patrick Johnson and the tackle out of USC and Marlon Tuipulotu. But it's going to be interesting on where he actually ends up. But as of right now, they're listing him as a linebacker.
Yeah, like I said, it's very, very, and we have some young guys who need to step up and show that they can, that they can produce. We have obviously the veteran who didn't start last year in the middle, but it looks like he's probably going to be, our starting middle linebacker, and Alex Singleton. He did fairly well. He put up pretty good numbers, especially tackle wise, as we're not starting, the full season. And then we have the incoming guy who we got from, the Vikings and Eric Wilson. So really my eye is going to be on Sean Bradley. Guys like Sean Bradley, Davion Taylor. I'm excited to see what Jannard Avery can do, moving back more to his more natural position as a stand-up linebacker. And, with the addition of Jacoby Stevens, and Jacoby Stevens is somebody who I don't know. It's sometimes you get the feeling about certain players, and they're going to be kind of that diamond in the rough a little bit. And I for some reason I think Jacoby Stevens is going to be that kind of that player. So that's it's going to be very, very interesting to see, especially with this young linebacker coach. Like I keep saying, my focus is really going to be on Nick Rawlis because he is so young and how he connects. I'm hoping that's going to be a good thing, and he's able to really connect. As a former player, he can really connect with these players. So we definitely have quite a bit of unanswered questions at linebacker for sure. I mean, and then transitioning to kind of like the defensive line. I mean, we drafted a guy at number 3 who, in my opinion, kind of his skill set resembles my favorite Eagle in Brandon Graham, and that's 6'3", 284 Milton Williams. What are your thoughts on him? He's kind of, I'm hearing good and bad things about him. What are your thoughts on Milton Williams, the defensive tackle?
Now, I'm glad you brought Milton up because this was another nugget that I wanted to bring onto the show here that I actually saved from the call-in since we last talked. So
nice.
Here's the thing. Now, listening to the Eagles have a couple of podcasts, and Fran Duffy does one. I forget what it's called at the moment. It's leaving my mind for a minute, but he actually was able to talk to the head coach out of Louisiana Tech about Milton Williams and his how he was an up and coming player. The crazy thing to think about with Milton is when he came into his freshman year, he was actually weighed in as a undersized defensive end. He only weighed about 230 pounds. So when I first heard that, I thought, well, holy crap. So he's at about 285, 290, playing the defensive end spot and then working around as a tackle. So for him but again, at the same time, it also matches like his athletic measurables to where he was and where he is now, how he's able to sustain that kind of athleticism, even though he gained about 55 to 60 pounds on his frame. I think that's something impressive to be said there. But again, he follows under the definition of our draft class, and most if not all of the players that we brought in have some capability of being versatile. So I can't necessarily complain about this pick. I know the consensus for a lot of Eagles fans was there were still corners on the board, and a corner should have been the pick at 70 before we traded down to 73 instead. And I'll admit I was one of them. But the more you look at a guy like Milton Williams, the more you realize that depth at the defensive tackle spot isn't as appealing as we once thought, and especially that he can move to defensive end to be there for guys like Derek Barnett and Josh Sweat, and eventually Brandon Graham's going to retire. We don't know if we're going to keep Derek Barnett outside of his option year, which is paying him $10 million. But outside of that, you have to like the versatility that these guys bring to the table, and it's only going to help give guys like Fletcher Cox and Javon Hargrave a break, especially that it was very difficult for them to see that sort of thing with the lack of depth and the scheme that Jim Schwartz ran in Philadelphia that I wasn't really a fan of.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't either. He put Big Play Slay out on an island, and to me, Slay he's a hell of a player, but he's not suited to do that type of thing, and he definitely didn't play to one of his best players' strengths on that side of the ball. So I agree with you. I wasn't a huge fan of Jim Schwartz, and basically he's lucky that Nick Foles was able to go tick for tat in the Super Bowl, or else we probably would have got blown out, because that secondary, Tom Brady ate us up in the Super Bowl. We were lucky to definitely. It was definitely a hard fought battle for sure. And Jim Schwartz, just to me, it got frustrating after a while, because he never really made the big adjust. He never really made any kind of big adjustments to his scheme and things like that. So, it's just. But Nikki Cunningham, thank you for checking in, Nikki. We appreciate that. She said, "Got to throw picks at the position. Makes sense to focus on one or the other in different years." I think she said earlier that she said, D-line in this draft, defensive back in the next. Yeah, okay. So that's it basically it is what it is at this point. With the draft being said and done, but talking about, you mentioned something that kind of grabbed my attention, I think, just recently, in regards to when we moved from 70 to 73, that allowed us to pick up Teron Jackson, right? The defensive end from Coastal Carolina. What are your thoughts on him? Have you dived into him at all yet? What are your initial thoughts on him?
I haven't dove into Teron as much, but from what I do know, him and Patrick Johnson seem to share a similar means of tenacity when they play on the football field. It's just, but the other thing that comes to my attention with Teron, and I know college degrees don't necessarily have to do anything with football, but at the same time, I thought it was interesting for him to bring up his degree, and it was somewhere along the lines of mathematics, and how he's still able to apply that to the game of football. So it's cool to see that there's a bit of an intellect there, outside of the fundamentals of football, obviously. But when you talk about, again, this is another player with good versatility. He has mentioned that. I think he could play a little bit of tackle, but he was primarily a defensive end. This is a guy who, I think he had over 20 sacks for his career over at Coastal Carolina, and Patrick Johnson shared a similar record for Tulane. But whereas you look at a guy like Patrick Johnson, where he was able to actually cover, a running back that was split out, or even he was also able to cover some receivers playing out of the slot, and he was able to deal with tight ends, playing a bit of a linebacker role. So, with that said, it's just with that said, I think it's more for me, it's more about the similarities that a lot of these players share that we brought in with, again, when it comes to versatility at their respective position, and just helping add to the depth, so we don't wear these veterans out.
I agree, yeah, because definitely our veterans are aging. BG's not getting any younger. Neither is Cox. So we have to start thinking about the future when it comes to that. And I think we did make some good additions. I agree with you. Transitioning over to the other side of the ball, I wanted to get your thoughts on Zach Ertz. Is he going to play for us this year? And if he does, shout out to Tone DeShields II. Another great Eagles content creator. Just did a collab with him last night, and Philly Notion. We were talking about this not too long ago on a live stream. When it comes to Zach Ertz, does self-preservation become an issue if we're going to put him out on the field this next year?
I don't think so necessarily. I think Zach is in a position where he knows he wants to he knows he wants to make more in this league, and he feels that he deserves a bigger contract than what he's already getting. I think he's on the books for just under $9 million, and to him, that's not enough because you don't want to undervalue yourself at the same time, and he still feels that he's like a top 3 to top 5 tight end in the league. And when you're at this point in your career, you're going to want to look for that one last big contract before you end up calling it quits. And I don't know if Ertz is to that point with being able to accomplish that kind of negotiation with the Eagles, unfortunately, because if it were the case that was possible, I feel it would have already been done by now. But as far as my opinion with Ertz, as much as I love him as a player, I don't feel it would be good for us to. I don't think it would be good for us to keep him because I think that it's just going to continue to stunt the growth of Dallas Goedert, especially that he's on the last year of his rookie contract. We got to know what. If we're looking for that next number one tight end, and it seems that Dallas Goedert right now has the best chance to be that for us moving forward. Before we decide to extend him, but all of that is going to be predicated on how well he does this year. And the only way I think we can find out on how good he's going to be is if he's that featured tight end. If you have Zach Ertz here, I don't know if he's going to want to settle being number 2 for one. And the second thing is the problem I have where, Zach is kind of stunting the growth of Goddard as a complete tight end. If Ertz is on the field, who's the defense going to focus on more? And it's been that way for the last couple of years. The amount of attention that defenses have to scheme for Zach Ertz, where Dallas Goedert doesn't necessarily grab that kind of attention. So if defenses know and if teams know that there's now a weakness at that position where Dallas isn't the kind of route runner that Zach is, and there's some nuances to his game that don't match. Well, we can easily shut Dallas down, and then we have to go to somebody else. But again, I'll bring up the receiver position. A guy like Devontae Smith can make that a lot easier because now you actually have to pay attention to guys in the receiving corps, and that's one thing that the Eagles weren't able to do as far as spreading the football around when it came to pass plays. There was always a focus on the tight end because either the quarterback didn't see the receivers at whatever point in time for them to get open, or the receivers just weren't getting open, and there was an over-reliance on guys like Zach Ertz. But at the same time, I would like to know what I have in Dallas Goedert, and I get it, Jay Fizz, if Goddard goes down, who do we trust? I mean, that's another question that they have to answer is it worth that $9 million to keep a disgruntled tight end here that obviously is having disputes with contract negotiations? Is that necessarily worth it? To say that you're just going to have to play under your contract. I mean, how committed is he going to be if he knows that this isn't what he wants? And that's where they're going to have to make a decision. Do they like some of the projects that they have right now, and Caleb Wilson or Tyree Jackson, or if Jack Stoll, the undrafted free agent, ends up climbing up the depth chart, if he makes a practice squad or what have you, whatever it may be, are any of those guys, Hakeem Butler as well, do you like any of those guys being the number 2 if Dallas Goedert transitions to number 1? I don't necessarily think so. I would feel a little more comfortable in bringing a guy back like Richard Rodgers if Zach Ertz isn't on this team. But again, when it comes to Zach, I would love if he stayed, but the situation's not looking good to me, and I still feel that he would somewhat stunt the growth of Dallas as that number 1 tight end.
You know what? With the combination, like you said, of him not being completely bought in to to this team going forward, and him being a kind of a cloud over D God. I agree with you. I don't think it would be the best for, especially for Dallas Goedert's, for his development, just for the position in general. I think it would be best to cut ties with Ertz. I hate even saying that, because I am a big I loved what he's done for this organization, but when a pair of socks gets a hole in it, it's time to kind of get rid of it. I hate to kind of use that analogy, but that's the one that came to mind. Thank you guys. Thank you everybody for checking in. Yeah, Jay Fizz also said, we did the same with BG. He wanted money. We pushed contract talks back, and he put up bad numbers, and we got him for less money, but production was even better. Yeah, that's a pretty good comparison, I would say. What do you think?
It's good to go about that, and it's very understandable. But at the same time, can you guarantee that a guy like Zach is going to make that kind of mental investment, and kind of put his back against the proverbial wall and say, well, if it's not going to be, you basically have one good payday left in you, based on you being closer to the tail end of your career. And I could say that, think about it. Travis Kelce's 31 years old, and he's still one of the top tight ends in the league. That's not to say that Zach Ertz can't bounce back. But what I'm saying is that because you have a uneasy situation right now, you would have to think that you put Zach in a situation like, look, we get that we can't see eye to eye on the contract right now. We don't feel that we can give it to you, but if you're willing to continue to commit, we can help you get that last big payday, even if it's on another team. If we can't come to terms, and if you commit and want to be a part of this, this revitalizing, developing culture under Nick Sirianni, and want to play with a guy in Jalen Hurts, to where Jalen Hurts is, I mean, he's basically polarizing right now in that locker room with the amount of respect that he's gaining with some of these young players. I mean, it's a pretty good offer. I would think that would be something I wouldn't necessarily refuse, that if I was in Zach's shoes, but it just depends where he is mentally on how he's willing to commit to that kind of situation.
I got you. And I mean, speaking of Jalen Hurts, I wanted to ask you this too. Do you think New York was really not after Devontae Smith, and they were really after Micah Parsons, and that's why Jerry Jones traded up with us, because he wanted Parsons?
It's a pretty good question to ponder, but I would think, based on where the Giants are right now, you can arguably say that their defense was better than their offense last year. So I wouldn't necessarily think that they would have wanted Micah Parsons, to where if you're the Giants, you're in a situation to where you want to figure out what you have in Daniel Jones. Is he going to be that guy moving forward? So you're going to want to give him as many weapons as possible. But in this case, the rich is trying to get richer, and the Giants didn't need another receiver. Let's make that point 100% and fully clear. The Giants did not need another receiver. They just signed Kenny Golladay, to a 4-year, $72 million deal. They're taking a risk on him. I think they not also have John Ross from the Cincinnati Bengals? I think they picked him up as well. They still got,
I believe they did.
They now have a tight end tandem in Evan Ingram and Kyle Rudolph. They got Darius Slayton. They got Sterling Shepard. Saquon Barkley's coming back healthy. So if I'm a Giants fan, which I don't want to put a bad taste in my mouth saying that, but I would have to imagine, like, what more does Daniel Jones need to be able to have the potential to take that next step. This was just a scenario where the rich is trying to get richer, and I get it. Devontae Smith is arguably, if not the best route running wide receiver, and you can say, and you can make an argument that he was the best wide receiver in this draft. But at the same time, the Giants didn't need him. They
did, and that's kind of that was my point behind the asking you that, because to me, they really didn't need him, and they probably could have. I agree with you. Their defense was better than their offense last year, and they could have easily. I guess they could have easily went quarterback as well, because I don't know how sold they are on Daniel Jones. I'm definitely not. I haven't seen anything out of Daniel Jones that makes me believe that he's going to be productive. Unless there's some drastic improvement, I don't see it happening. But speaking of Devontae Smith, what are your kind of rough predictions for him this next year? And is there above average, in your opinion, is there above average chance that that he can win Offensive Rookie of the Year?
I definitely think so. I mean, the biggest, when we acquired Devontae Smith, I dropped a video on it, and reviewing those post-draft pressers and having Devontae here. And the biggest thing that we got to keep in mind is that this was, and I titled it in my thumbnail, this was the perfect pick for Jalen Hurts. And I can't imagine how I can't imagine that as an organization where this still doesn't say that you're not invested in Jalen Hurts when you give him a former receiver that he played with, and these guys still have a pretty good connection to this day. But as Devontae talked about it earlier today, that there's still going to be those little nuances of the NFL where, yeah, he knows him and Jalen have a connection since college, but there's a lot of intricacies that are different, in the NFL. So they kind of have to revisit those and, regather themselves. And, he already feels that him and Jalen Hurts are going to be the best quarterback receiver duo, even with the likes of Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, or Tua and Jalen Waddle. It's going to be it's going to be definitely entertaining to see where that trio of pairs, what they do for their respective football teams. But again, Devontae Smith is an alpha for this locker room at the wide receiver position. He's the alpha that we haven't had in such a long time. He brings a mode of discipline to him that's going to make every other receiver better in that locker room, that wants to commit to the processes that he went through and has carried with him through his college career at Alabama, going against the scrutiny, proving the doubters wrong, being a Heisman winning wide receiver that hasn't been done in over 2 decades. I mean, the record, that kind of record that he's bringing from college, it just puts you in awe. And that aura that he carries, if I'm on that football team and I'm working with Devontae, that's going to want to make me do better. That's going to want to make me reach the level that he has reached in college. And I can't imagine that he doesn't carry this for the Philadelphia Eagles to where it's definitely possible that he could win Offensive Rookie of the Year. But again, it's all going to depend on how our offense is organized. How run heavy are we going to be? How often are we going to set up Jalen Hurts to pass the football?
Right.
But there's a lot of things to consider. But the biggest thing to me is that I think our football team, finally has a direction that we necessarily haven't had the last 2 years.
Yeah, and if so, and the thing about Devontae too is he is just as good off the field as he is on. He's getting such high praise about his professionalism and his work ethic and things like that. He is mature beyond his years, and that kind of brings me back to what I was saying about the Cowboys. Giving, like you just said, giving Jalen Hurts what he wanted. You better be careful. You better be careful when you give a true competitor like Jalen Hurts in a competitive city like Philadelphia what he wants, a overly talented star receiver that's going to come in right away and produce. You better be careful, Jerry Jones, if you're listening. You better be careful, because Hurts is it's gonna hurt so good when Devontae is burning the Cowboys secondary. But and two, it's just gonna, to me, that's gonna, I think a competitor like Jalen is gonna take it like a slap in the face. He's gonna take it like, okay, you're gonna give me what I wanted. If I was Jerry, like you said, the Giants really didn't need another receiver, but I would rather give Daniel Jones that Devontae Smith, if that's really who they wanted, than Jalen Hurts, in my opinion. Obviously my opinion may be a little biased, but that's it is what it is at this point. And that's all I gotta say is you better be careful. You better be careful what you wish for and what you give this kid, because Jalen Hurts is coming to play, and I think the Slim Reaper is going to come in and be productive. But I think, like you said too, we're going to be playing some 12 personnel, and hopefully more run heavy to take some pressure off of Hurts. So that's going to obviously, it could limit Smith's touches just in the numbers itself. So that has to be taken into effect, into factoring too. So looks like we've been. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think it also goes to say that Devontae has talked about this before in some of his pressers. He talked about that him and Jalen had the they have had this thought before that what if we come to the NFL and we end up playing together, and he has talked about it, and he has said, well, it's to the point now where we spoken into existence. And exactly. I mean, you better be careful what you wish for. And Dallas wished that they wanted to improve on defense. That obviously they were historically bad last year, and now they have again another new defensive coordinator in Dan Quinn, who was prone to choking in big games with the Atlanta Falcons. So that's not the kind of recipe I don't think that you would want. They bring over a aging veteran, Keanu Neal, who doesn't have the speed anymore to play safety, so now he's stuck playing the linebacker. And I just still don't know about Dallas's defense going into this year, but that's besides the point. What I was talking about is that when you have two players like this in Jalen and Devontae Smith talking about that idea of playing together one day, and it actually happens, and this goes for anybody in life, bringing up the idea of a what if, like having this. You have these massive aspirations in the back of your head, and it's like whether it's a dream job or the opportunity to get a nice house or that car that you've always wanted, and the opportunity presents itself. You're not gonna let that pass like every fiber in your body, you're not going to let that opportunity pass. And this is where Jalen Hurts and Devontae Smith are at right now, and they have the potential to do something pretty damn special.
Yeah, I mean, it's invaluable in this league. I should say it can be invaluable in this league to have a connection and chemistry like these guys already have. So, it's nothing but a good thing for us, and it's hopefully going to be nothing but a good thing for the most part out on the field. So,
I mean, look at what the Buccaneers did after they won the Super Bowl. They retained everybody off of that roster that brought a Lombardi to Tampa. So, you can't overlook or underrate those kinds of things, because I mean, outside of talent, in my opinion, and I know this may be unpopular, but there's cases where talent isn't necessarily everything, and character is also a big contributor when it comes to being a football player, or even outside of football. Character carries you as much as talent does with any sport you play, and you have to have that determination. You got to have that drive to want to be that top guy that you're looking to be in whatever sport that you're playing. So
yeah, I mean,
yeah.
And so, in your opinion, what? And I think I know your answer, but it's going to lead into a little more talk. We've been going for about an hour and 45 minutes right now, so we'll probably go for another 15 minutes or so. I don't know if you have any questions for me, but one of the things I was going to ask you is, what's the biggest need right now? Right now, what's the biggest need on this team? And I think I know your answer.
I would have to imagine that it's the consensus answer at this point, and it's got to be cornerback. It's like I just don't know how we feel about the position, and we talk about the secondary, and Rodney McLeod dropped a video on Twitter today that he's as determined as ever. Going into year 10, he's here to stay. He's saying he's here to stay. He doesn't want to go anywhere, and he's not letting this injury get to him. And all these people, they're doubting him on missing games and everything, and he says that he's pushing to be ready for week 1, and those are the kinds of that's just the kind of quality in a player that's hard to replace. That somebody has that hunger to want to help the football team that they're a part of. So as far as safety position, yeah, there's a lot of people that that feel that it could use help, but I mean, who do you like outside of Slay at the cornerback spot? I mean, do we and time
there's nobody. Yeah, there's really nobody in house that has proven that they can do it. And but in the same token, I don't want to put our team in a financial strain and take on a big contract like Stephon Gilmore. I know a lot of people are pushing for that. To me, that's not the direction that this team should be going at all. I would probably, especially if we can get him on more of a team friendly deal, I would be more on the Steven Nelson train, definitely, as far as bringing in a veteran corner. I'm not too big on Richard Sherman anymore. I think age is definitely catching up to him. But Lindy, I forgot to mention that I put in the comments a little bit ago the call-in tab. So it looks like Jay Fizz is in the back. So what do you think about chopping it up with Jay Fizz a little bit?
Yeah, I'm always ready to hang out with Jay Fizz. He's a good friend of mine.
All right, so listen, I was digging in my teeth. I was praying to God that you wouldn't jump me in when I was digging in my teeth. But
oh man,
I heard you introducing me. I was like, God, if there's ever a moment that this does not need to happen right now, let it be. Hello, both of you. Philly Foothills is wonderful to meet you.
You too, sir. I appreciate you joining this live stream.
Absolutely. You guys was dropping heat, and I was enjoying myself. It was a good time. Lindy, love you. Always a good time to come chat with you. Couple of things. Well, the main thing that I jumped on for is the Zach Ertz conversation, because I agree with y'all on some aspects, but there's other ones I disagree with. However, before we start anything off, I would like to say is that if Elijah Holyfield is anywhere, if he's even in the city of Philadelphia when the season starts, I'm going to have a problem with him. All right. All right, I don't want him anywhere, and it's not. He's a good dude. I'm sure he calls his grandmother every Sunday. I'm sure he, you know what I'm saying, volunteers at shelters and everything. Like, I'm sure he's a wonderful human being. It has nothing to do with him as a person. It has everything to do with him being a warm body roster spot every year and doing nothing. I am sick of it. He can go. So that's number one, and then number two is. I agree with you guys. You know what I'm saying? The Zach Ertz situation is very volatile. And you know what I'm saying? If he wants to go, he should go. However, every report that has come out, even from him, from everywhere else, has always said, hey, I want to stay in Philly. I just want to be paid my money, which is fair. You're a Super Bowl winning tight end. You have an NFL record to your name for catches in the season by a tight end. You've earned it. I'm all here for it. My whole thing is, we're broke. All right, we're not going to be able to pay him, and we're going to be able to play Dallas Goedert. So that's one. So you got to kind of pick your poison there. I love Dallas Goedert. I think the sky is the limit with him. However, on a team that cannot stay healthy, he has also been one of the people to not stay healthy. So unless the health situation gets better, unless our medical staff gets better and everything like that, it's the same thing what you guys were saying about Miles Sanders, where you feel like this is the year he kind of has to turn it up. That same conversation can be said about everybody who's been consistently injured on this team, who's entering a contract year. So I don't really, it's not really fair to kind of put that on him and everything like that. But also a fact is a fact. Oh, it's not fair to put that on Miles, but also a fact is a fact. And I understand where you guys are coming from. However, like you were saying, when a sock gets a hole, you know what I'm saying, you gotta throw the sock away. However, if it's a top 3 sock all time, and at least in the current NFL, you gotta get the sewing kit. You know what I'm saying? You gotta sew that hole, brother.
I hear you. I appreciate you. And what I mean, I definitely I appreciate your take in coming in and talking about the Zach Ertz thing and things like that. But have you had a chance to look at the schedule yet? What I want to get your opinion on how division heavy. Do you ever remember seeing the end of the schedule being that division heavy? I mean, there is back to back games, I think, at the end of the year. It's crazy.
I mean, we've been going off the same thing. I think we've been playing Washington pretty heavy. Like we'll either start out the season against Washington or not Washington. Excuse me, the Giants. We'll start the season going to Washington or have Washington coming to us, and then we usually go on a 4-week stretch where we play the Giants at least twice, or usually towards the end of the season and everything like that. Also factoring in, they want people to care about the end of the season because, like we said, they were resting the starters here and there through the early mid-2000s before they changed the rule. So they want people to care about the last 3 games of the season, even though we know how the playoffs might be shaken out. So I understand it, and also it makes it a lot interesting. It makes it a lot more interesting also, just because injuries, especially in the NFC East, more than anything. I think I saw a stat saying that we were the most hurt division in football, but it is what it is. I gotta go look that back up. But let's just say all of us are looking up to our potential at week 4, 5, 6, 7, right? Usually heading towards that middle of the season, that's when things, you know who your team is, you can start making those matchups. But the one thing that plays more into anything is health. So with it being later in the season, health is going to be whatever team is held together the most by glue and spit and pride and will, like that's the team that's going to be able to pull out, which could help us in the end. All right. Because the beginning of the season, we're going to get slaughtered. Again, we got like San Francisco. They're health and a quarterback away from blowing us out the water on a consistent basis. We got Atlanta. Atlanta's trash, though. And I don't appreciate them trying to have beef with us. They can get out of here. They're just get it out.
Choke sandwiches.
I'm saying, bro, just get them out of here. Out of here. Also, I don't understand this like confidence in Matt Ryan, but he's a bum. It is what it is. That's neither here nor there.
Yeah, he's definitely on the back nine of his career. I agree. But did you have any questions for us? I have somebody else in the back. So Lindy, did you have anything for Jay Fizz?
Yeah. One other thing outside of that is again, I agree with you guys that Kerryon and Jordan are the same type of running back. In my head, though, with both of them coming off of injuries and everything like that, and both of them needing their loads kind of monitored, would it not make more sense to you guys to run with a Miles, Gainwell, and then having two power backs back there with keeping Johnson and Kerryon?
I think it's just going to depend on the makeup of special teams. I mean, it's going to come into effect on who even makes the roster in the first place. I mean, outside of Adrian Killens, you feel that we're going to be able to utilize a guy like Jason Huntley or Boston Scott on special teams to return kicks or punts. I mean, I don't see it. And and we can't have. I mean, obviously, I don't feel that we can have Miles back there either, unless you dive into the depth at receiver, which everybody thought that was a bad idea last year. Outside of Jalen Reagor having a receiver return a kick or a punt, even though Reagor returned one for a touchdown against the Packers, which resembled Deshaun Jackson a little bit, fumbling it and picking back up and running to the end zone. But I think it's just all going to depend at the end of the day on who actually makes the team as far as being able to utilize people to carry that role on special teams.
Yeah, and Nikki Cunningham says, "Am I the only one that wants a big bruiser back? Blunt 250 pounds, and that worked out for us. Why did we get away from that?" I don't think you're the only one that wants a big bruiser back. I mean, Jordan Howard's on this roster. We just got Kerryon, who he kind of resembles that role as well. So hopefully we don't stray away from that too much, because we need that. We need a bigger body back there, especially on very short yardage, goal line, things like that, because we don't have that. We don't have that big quarterback body anymore. Jalen Hurts he's more, he's a smaller guy than number 2 for the Colts. But thank you for checking in, Nikki. We really do appreciate it.
Why? Wait, real quick. Why do you guys refuse to say his name? He's not the boogeyman. We loved him for so long. Why are we treating him like this? He didn't do anything.
I think I'm just following the trend of people not mentioning his name in Philadelphia lore anymore.
Yeah. Shout out to Moochie. He started it. Moochie Robinson. He started the trend.
I don't understand. We loved him. We defended him for a very long time, and now we won't. Like, this is really like an X situation. This is intense. We didn't treat McNabb like this. And McNabb,
there was people who traded teams because of Wentz. I mean, you got to be kidding me. How deep does your fandom really lie? I mean, I understand you could still support the guy and you could wish him great things, but as long as he's not playing against the Eagles, as far as I'm concerned, I still think he's got a pretty bright future ahead of him in the NFL. I say it. I do that just for comedic value myself, really, for the most part. But I'm glad you got it, because
All right, that's all I wanted to come on and say what's up. Like I said, I was enjoying the show. You two brothers keep doing what you're doing. Appreciate it. Hopefully I can talk to you guys later at some other point. But y'all have a good night. Fly Eagles fly. And Elijah Holyfield, don't come into the facility ever.
We appreciate you, Jay Fizz.
All right, y'all have a good night.
Peace, later, all right, we got next. We got
always a trip.
Let's see here. We got Jordy Fighter in the back here. Jordy Fighter, are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here.
What's going on, buddy? How you doing? Welcome to the Nest Out West with my special guest here, Mr. Lindy Endzone. How you doing? How you feeling?
Thanks for having me here.
You're welcome.
Hello. Glad to see you again. So
I'm bringing all my buddies over here.
I wanted to come in. I have something I want to say, but first I want to ask a question. What do you think about the CB2 depth on the outside behind Slay?
Oh, it's very thin. It's a huge like shout out to Philly Fresh says it's got more holes than a Jamaican tank top. You know, it needs to be addressed. And if they plan on sticking the rookie out there, that's a bad idea. If you ask me, that's asking for trouble. That's going to set him off on the wrong path. To me, I think he'll get eaten up as a rookie. Unless your name is in recent memory, unless your name is Jalen Ramsey, that's a hard thing to do, a hard transition for a young kid to come into the NFL at corner. So, I mean, that's my thoughts. I'm hoping Howie brings in a veteran at a good team friendly deal. You know, maybe bring in Steven Nelson on a 1-year deal. What do you think, Lindy?
The more I think about Steven Nelson, the more I don't feel that we'll be able to swing the kind of price that he would be looking for. Currently, from what I heard, there's in excess of 14 teams actually interested in him right now, with us being one of them. So you have to imagine that competition is going to get stiff. Pause. But you have to imagine that the competition is going to get pretty rough and wanting to acquire his services. So I don't see that happening unless we get a guy like Ertz off the books with us saving $9 million in order to spend that elsewhere. But I don't know. I mean, Zach, I don't know if it's going to really destroy Zach McPherson if he comes in as the CB2 on the outside. It's just going to depend on how quick he adjusts to the speed of the NFL, and he already has that kind of versatile capability to be able to play inside or outside. He was a big special teams contributor. But again, at the same time, you also have to consider matchups with who you're going against on a weekly basis. Who are the featured receivers on the roster? Who do you like against said players, et cetera, et cetera. But that's also not to diminish the fact that our depth is terrible at the position. I mean, I don't think we want guys like Kevon Seymour out there or Michael Jaquette, who still continue to need development on this roster. So whatever they do, even if it ends up being Zach McPherson, they still need to address the depth at the CB2 spot.
Yeah, I agree with you. I don't necessarily think throwing in Zach McPherson right out of the gates is going to hurt him as much as some people think. But still, I don't agree with throwing him out there, because we've done this before and it hasn't worked. We've done it at different positions. So why are we going to try to do it again and hope for different results?
Well, you can also consider the fact that with us throwing corners out there, a lot of times it was due to the circumstance of injury, and there was a lack of preparation for some of these guys to go on the field. I mean, you can take a perfect example in throwing Michael Jaquette out there in a couple of tough assignments between the Arizona Cardinals and the Dallas Cowboys, who he had to cover there. I think he had to. You think of like guys like Michael Gallup and Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, and then you bring up Arizona, and here he is covering DeAndre Hopkins, where he actually did somewhat of a decent job. It's just that he didn't carry over that kind of consistency with coverage against the Cowboys. So, but again, those kind of situations are not ideal, and either way, you want a backup plan for to prevent that sort of situation.
Yeah, I mean, we have to. To me, we can't go in. If we even think about putting Maddox back on the outside, that's a terrible idea. I think, in my opinion, McPherson will get, he might be able to hang out there, but he's going to get picked on. They're going to throw away from Slay, so I just don't know. But Jordy, what are your thoughts on the schedule? It just came out today, right before we came on. Have you circled any dates on your on the schedule that jumped out to you? Are there any games that you're looking forward to?
Now, most fans, they obviously circle divisional games, and that's the ones I usually circle. So, and that's usually an obvious answer you get. But interestingly, I also have circled the Raiders game and the Saints game, which are two interesting teams to me. Because with the Raiders, you have a team that's rebuilding their offensive line. They've got a good put-together offense. They've got a secondary that they've been trying to build up, though it's struggling still. And I think I've said this before on my streams, it's a bottom 10 secondary as of right now. And they're trying to build up that defensive line. I think that's going to be interesting to gauge how Philly's doing midseason. And then, 2 or 3 weeks later, we go and play New Orleans, who is another team who is transitioning between quarterbacks. And you've also got Michael Thomas coming off surgery, and you've got a couple different guys here and there that are question marks that you're like, well, if Philly's good enough this season and everything pans out, we can beat this team. So those are two games that really jump out to me and sound kind of interesting with how they can gauge Philly midseason.
I got you. I mean, Lindy, looking at the schedule, is there any games that kind of jumped out at you? I know we talked about it a little bit earlier, but what do you think?
I feel that I'm still stuck on those six question mark games that I threw out there, and then Jordy just brought up two of them, and I didn't necessarily consider the Raiders, but the more you look at it, it's like, yeah, they're in a rebuild with the offensive line, and they still have a decent quarterback in Derek Carr, but it still goes to say that there was reports at points in time where it was thought that head coach John Gruden didn't necessarily have the faith in a guy like Derek Carr, that he didn't feel that he was the answer at the quarterback position. So you throw that out there. The unsung story of the Raiders with Nelson Aguilar, how he was playing over there. He's gone. He's now a New England Patriot. So the weaponry that Carr is dealing with, it's like, well, what does he have left? I mean, the only notable guy that I can think of is Darren Waller, but outside of that, I'm not sure. I don't know how his receivers are shaping up right now. Where they are defensively. So yeah, you can make the case for the Raiders, and as Jordy brought up, the quarter, like that quarterback questioning that the Saints are going through right now. Is it going to be Taysom Hill, or is it going to be Jameis Winston? Like, how good are Jameis's eyes after that surgery to where he's not going to throw 30 interceptions in the season again? And you consider at the same time that the Buccaneers offense isn't the Saints offense, where the Buccaneers were all about just chucking the ball down the field, trying to hit guys like Chris Godwin and Mike Evans, where the Saints is a little more methodical when you have that type of running back in Alvin Kamara, and you got that dependable target in Michael Thomas, who is really a difference maker. And but yeah, I agree with those two picks in the season.
Yeah, one of them that I mentioned earlier was the the week 6, where Thursday night matchup against the defending champ. So
yep,
that, to me, that could possibly play to our favor with Tom Brady getting older every second. He's human too. So I know TB12 is done amazing things, but that's one that kind of kind of jumped out at me too, because I know those are, those Thursday night games can be tricky with the short rest, things like that. So, I mean, Jordy, what do you think about that Thursday night matchup?
I mean, we know Philly's not really going to be in that game, but I think it's really going to be a test for the coaching staff more so than the players going up against a team as good as that, where you just say, well, what can the coaches do? Because you already know what you have in most players. So what do you have in the coaches is the real question there.
Yeah, definitely. It's just I feel that this is going. Yeah, I feel that this is going to be the greatest test of the season. There's no doubt about it. You're looking at a 7-time champion in Tom Brady, who to this point in his career has seen everything from a defensive standpoint, and there's not one thing that you can necessarily trick him on. And not to mention that, again, we talked about this earlier, Foothills, how the Buccaneers have brought everybody back from that Super Bowl winning team. So there's no change as far as a chemistry standpoint, which is also a factor that works in Tampa Bay's favor, to where, yeah, it's like we're going to be in a pick your poison situation. It's like, we have to worry about Gronkowski. We got to worry about Leonard Fournette and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Antonio Brown is still there. It's like you could just continue to go on. And I'm not even considering the defense right now. With Shaq Barrett, Jason Pierre-Paul, and that defensive line. There's just so many overwhelming factors that come with the Buccaneers, and then it's like, well, what can this new group of fresh minds in this coaching staff that are trying to build a resume for themselves in the NFL at their higher positions from a coaching standpoint, what can they do to make some sort of impact on some of the best players and the best quarterback who's ever done it in the league? What can they do to set themselves not so much apart, but in a position to where they can be respected from the rest of the league?
That's good points, Lindy. I mean, you kind of took the words out of my mouth. Really, it's going to be one of those things. I mean, Jordy, what do you think? Did you have any more insight on that?
And I will say this is probably going to be Gannon's biggest test on defense, because Philly's getting a new defensive coordinator, and this is not Jim Schwartz, so it should be somewhat of a better defense with some disguises and looks here and there. So at this point, I think Philly would have to go into that game and go, how can we trick Tom Brady? And that's going to be the big test of Gannon's mind and that defensive staff's mind in general.
Yeah, I think this is where I think this is the perfect opportunity to where Jonathan Gannon can sort of set himself apart in regards to the previous defensive coordinator that's been on the that's been here for the Philadelphia Eagles. Because as we know, the biggest thing with Jim Schwartz was as far as the defensive line goes is just line up and rush the quarterback. There was no disguising. There was nothing to it. It was predictable. It was predictable. It was simple. You just have one job: get after the quarterback. That's it. And we talk from a secondary standpoint. There was really never any cushion for the cornerbacks as far as safety help. And then how many times have we seen that them playing 8 yards off of the line of scrimmage and that kind of picket fence defense of bend don't break, and it was just I don't know, there was just too much. There was too much simplicity to me that there was never enough done to want to make an offense think, and that was a problem. We didn't do enough to make the other team think on what they were going to do when their offense hit the field. And yeah, can you say that had to deal with from a talent perspective of who was on our roster? Maybe, but at the same time, it still doesn't help, put players in positions in order to succeed.
And that was a problem on both sides of the ball. I mean, just putting that plain yogurt out there on the field. I've said this before. Doug Peterson was good at scripting the first 10 to 12 plays or whatever he did on his card, but his in-game adjustments he was not very good at, in my opinion. And he was same way with Jim Schwartz, like you were saying, just putting that very predictable scheme out there that teams were able to pick up on and make adjustments for and attack and be successful. So, it's very, very refreshing to have a new regime in Philadelphia, to have new coaching, things like that. I'm very, very glad that we were able to retain Stoutland as our offensive line coach. I thought that was huge. As far as he's number one in my book as far as offensive line coaches go in the league, and his experience is invaluable. But Jordy, I don't know if you have anything else for us, but we've been on for like 2 hours and 15 minutes, so I think I'm going to get going in a few minutes. But if you have any more questions you have for us, go ahead and let us know.
I do have one more question. What do you think about adding another veteran linebacker to this core, even with the abundance of linebackers already here? Because there's not, outside of Wilson, and you can also say maybe Singleton and TJ, there's not much experience in this group altogether. So do you think that could be something that they do maybe in a mid-season or early season pickup just for experience to bring in to help this young core?
Go ahead, Lindy.
I think I see where you're going with this, because we talked about it earlier, and it's kind of for Eagles fans that don't know, the Arizona Cardinals have made Jordan Hicks available to seek a trade, and he's kind of dangling, in front of our in front of our feet right now. But I don't. He has had issues with staying healthy, and and I get it. He's maintained a good bill of health for the Cardinals, but I don't, even if it means having the opportunity of getting Ertz's contract and cap hit off the books, I just don't want to. I don't want to risk bringing in another veteran, especially at the linebacker position for this roster. We already know what a guy like Jordan Hicks brings to the table, but we might. There's even the chance that he might not even fit what Jonathan Gannon wants to do. That has to be considered as well. But at the same time, it's kind of that stunting the growth effect that I feel with Zach Ertz and Dallas Goedert, that you bring in another veteran like this, and we already have Eric Wilson to kind of command that room, because he already knows what Jonathan Gannon wants to do. So again, Jordan Hicks is going to end up being in the same boat with guys like Alex Singleton and TJ Edwards, and you got guys like Davion Taylor and Sean Bradley who are on the come up that want to that they want to contribute more to this football team outside of special teams. So I don't know if bringing in a veteran linebacker would be a good idea.
And I think I would tend to agree with that. Especially with the lack of I'm pretty sure we still have to, we have enough to sign our rookies and things like that, but we don't have a lot of cap space on top of that left. So I would definitely probably shy away from that, because like Lindy mentioned, we have some young guys like Sean Bradley and Davion Taylor that we need to put out there on the field a little bit more and see if we can see if we have something in them. And if not, then we're going to have to, invest in that position a little bit more going forward. But yeah, to answer your question, Jordy, I mean, if I was the GM, I probably would not, because also, don't forget that he hasn't played the position in a little bit, but Jannard Avery is also moving back to linebacker. So he does have experience playing linebacker in the NFL. He just hasn't played it recently. But so, in my opinion, I would say no.
You know, I mean, you got Joe Osman, potentially trying to position out. Patrick Johnson is versatile as a 7th-round pick, and Jacoby Stevens is listed as a linebacker right now. So there's a bunch of depth that you got to work out there right now. And I could understand if the team itself was in a different phase, if they weren't in a process of retooling, and they're just looking to add those kind of veteran pieces that they're like, 1 or 2 players away of being a higher potential playoff team like we were when we made the moves we did in 2017, then I can understand, the point of making an emphasis to execute that. But, at this time right now, when we're more so in a case of like starting from the ground up, I don't feel that it would be a good idea.
All right. Thank you guys for letting me come on and talk. Lindy, like always, nice to see you. Philly Foothills. Nice first meeting with you. I hope I can talk to both of you guys again sometime.
We appreciate it. Thank you for coming on. Definitely.
Good luck. Have a good night. Have a good week. Go Birds.
Appreciate it, Jordy. You always
do the same. Yes, sir. Fly Eagles fly. Definitely appreciate you coming on, buddy. Thank you. All right. So, Lindy, we got a couple people left in the live stream. Thank you everybody for coming on today and dropping the comments, and special thank you to Jay Fizz and to Jordy for coming on and chopping it up with us a little bit. But Lindy, did you have anything else for me? Did you have any questions for me or anything like that?
Not necessarily that I can think of. I would just I think I would just be more along the lines of being appreciative for this kind of opportunity and getting myself out there to get to know more Eagles content creators outside of the intellectual level when it comes to just talking about our favorite football team, and a little bit of a more personal level, because obviously obviously this sport and this football team has brought us together for the same purpose. But so at the same time, again, I'm just thankful for the opportunity to finally have this stream with Foothills here, and think we kicked ass today for over 2 hours.
Hell yeah, man! Almost 2.5 actually. And you guys, if even the live stream right now, or if you guys watch this later, please go check out my man, Lindy Endzone. Puts out good content. Go sub him up. Show the love. Definitely pay it forward because he deserves it. Let's get him over 100 subs, hopefully before the end of May. We got to get you there, but you definitely deserve it of it. And I very much appreciate you taking the time to come on with me today. And we'll do this again soon. Definitely, it was very, very good. I appreciate you.
Absolutely. Always.
Yeah. You guys out there in the YouTube universe, as always, fly Eagles fly, and stay mean, stay green, and thanks for viewing me on your screen. Peace.
Take care, everybody.